Lesson 103, dividing radical expressions. Radical expressions in simplest form, you do not have a fraction for the radicand, and you can't have a radical in the denominator. So we're going to do what's called rationalize the denominator. Rationalize the denominator just means remove radicals from the denominator and anything else that's not a rational number. So we want to make the denominator rational. We want it to be a rational number. So here's some examples. The square root of 15 halves. Well, that's, if we use the rule of square roots, quotient of square roots, that's equal to the square root of 15 over the square root of 2. We cannot have a radical in the denominator, so we're going to just multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. We're just multiplying by 1, so we're not changing the value at all. We're just changing the way it looks. So the square root of 30 divided by 2, and that would be rationalized and an acceptable answer. It's in simplest form. Now here's example 2, square root of 7 divided by y. So we separate out so that we have the square root of 7 divided by the square root of y. We're going to multiply the numerator by the square root of y and the denominator by the square root of y. Then we simplify. We have the square root of 7 times y divided by y. And that's the answer for example 2. Example 3, if we have 2 square roots of 50 y to the 6th divided by the square root of 28 y to the 5th. Now, there is one thing that you can do when you have fractions. If the, let's see, what is under the square root sign, you can simplify before you rationalize the denominator. So let me just rewrite this as 2 times the square root of this fraction. So I can cancel y to the 5th from the numerator and the denominator. If I divide both 50 and 28 by 2, I get 25 and 14 in the denominator. So now what I have is 2 square root of, wait, let me put that in the numerator here. So we have 2 square root of 25y divided by the square root of 14. The square root of 25 is just 5. So 5 times 2 is 10 root y divided by the square root of 14. Then I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 14. And that equals 10 square root of 14y divided by 14. Square root of 14 times square root of 14 is just 14. Then I'm going to divide my 10 and my 14 by 2. And I'm left with 5 square root of 14y divided by 7. That's the end of the lesson.